In the first of these videos about vocation, remember that every baptised believer is called by God to something unique. The first step in working out what that calling might be was to ask ourselves, what gifts and skills has God given me? And how am I using them in the service of God and the church? For God never asks us to use our gifts and skills simply for our own ends. Our calling is always to serve other people, just as Jesus did. Remember how Jesus told his disciples, "Whoever wishes to be first among you must be the slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." So as we consider our God-given calling, we ask ourselves, who are the people that God is calling us to serve? Who are the people for whom I feel particular compassion? It might be the young. It might be those who are advancing in years. It could be my next door neighbour or a persecuted minority on the far side of the world. I asked various people, who do you think God is calling you to serve? And this is what they said.
I find it really interesting that in Luke's Gospel, Luke's a bit more radical than Matthew. He says, "Blessed are the poor." He leaves out the in-spirit bit that you get in Matthew. And in the parish where I'm serving my curacy, we're the second most deprived parish in the whole diocese, according to the stats. And so, I mean, a bit like Luke and my namesake, and Francis and Claire, you know, I think it's among the least of these, as some theologians have put it, people who feel on the edges. As someone who's felt really on the edges myself most of my life, that's where the church needs to be, I think. In the Catholic tradition, they talk about being evangelized by the poor.
This is the question I felt most drawn to, actually. There are so many different answers to that question because on one hand, the love of God is for absolutely everybody. So I feel called to serve absolutely everybody. But of course, that I'm one human being and that's completely unrealistic. So we have to kind of narrow it down a little bit. My cure of souls, the people that I have a particular care for are benefice of two parishes. So, and I think churches begin to struggle or sort of perhaps even go into decline when we get into the mindset of just serving the people within our four walls. Of course, I love our congregation dearly and I want to be with them and serving them. But actually, the people I want to serve are the people of these parishes.
My desire has always been to share God's love with the people around me. So people in my local parish, my next door neighbor, people in my workplace, I'm really called to just reach out to everybody. That's what my heart's desire is, to get people to develop an intimate relationship with God, to know that he loves them and he wants them to be part of his family. And so, yeah, I feel called to really those around me.
People who perhaps weren't church from cradle to grave type people who haven't been to church, people who are on the fringes or who have been hurt by church, who had a bad experience. I just feel people who have very difficult lives and would not think of church as a place that they would come to or as a place where they can build relationships.
Over the years, I've been increasingly having that feeling, the need to reach out specifically to those who are marginalized, and sometimes those are very hard to reach. So I now feel intentionally called to reach out in love and faith to the UK minority ethnic groups, and at the same time promoting and celebrating their diversity.
I don't necessarily think there's specific people that I've been called to help or support, but I found myself in many situations throughout my life where I'm looking back, the penny drops and it's kind of like, okay, God, you had a plan and I was obviously supposed to be there at that point in time. So I think that was God at work at that point in time without me realizing it.
So I feel really called to serve the teenagers in our community. And it doesn't really, like, yes, for church and yes, bringing them to Jesus, but also just helping them in their development as young adults to become like the next, not the next generation, the current generation, because I think they are the current generation and it's like trying to equip them to become leaders.
As you think about your calling, it's good to remember that vocation and service go hand in hand. So who are the people that God is calling you to serve?